is then a response to this analysis of the gaps that we have, both in terms of the skills, but also in terms of the delivery infrastructure. Um, and then say what programs do we put in place to enhance our delivery infrastructure and also to make sure that we have upped the supply of the skills that we lack. You also realize that because of the fact that we may have oversupply of some skills, there may be need to reskill some of the talents that we have in our economy so that we reorient and make sure that they are fit to purpose. So that's generally what the ministry is supposed to do. But let me say right from the beginning, establishing what skills we lack and what skills we need to develop is no mean task. It is not a task that government or the ministry can do on its own. It has to be a broad-based undertaking with the participation of all the sectors of our economy, with the participation of institutions of higher learning. But I think the participation of the entire Zimbabwean society, because we are not just looking at skills that are necessary for the flourishing of our industries and, in your case, the flourishing of commerce, but we are also looking at skills that go down even to the what level and can enhance the transformation that we want to see at that level. The transformation of our rural areas, the proper utilization of the resource endowments that we have across the country so that we can create value for our people. It also looks into the future. We have to understand, scan the environment and say, what are the skills that are going to be needed in order to sustain Zimbabwe's transformation? And I want to emphasize that transformation by way of bringing economic prosperity to this country, by way of making sure that we have gone to a higher level in terms of our production systems. Some people refer to such transformation as the industrialization of the nation. Others just look at the quality of it, including issues of sustainability, including issues of making sure that we're taking care of our environment as we go forward, but also including making sure that we are not lagging behind as far as adopting or adapting to the emerging technologies, the so-called fourth industrial revolution, the information, modern information economy. All those demand that we look at ourselves and say, what new skills do we need in the nation in order to be prepared for it? The strategic planning that we did also clearly stated that um, commerce will need, for example, good skills in terms of a customer experience, good skills in the various areas of management that are related to excellent commercial operations. But at the same time, we said there are cross-cutting skills that are going to be needed by the entirety of the nation if we are to achieve economic transformation and social transformation. That, for example, the nation needs a reorientation of its mindset to where we become a nation that pushes for excellent performance in everything. We have to be a nation that addresses issues of innovation, having an innovation approach, having a critical thinking approach, having a problem solving approach, um, making sure that we have broad based leadership capabilities in all our sectors so that we can propel ourselves, our nation, into a trajectory of transformation that will make us achieve not just Vision 2030, by the way, but way beyond Vision 2030 into the realization of the Zimbabwean dream. This is why I say what we are faced with is not a mean task at all. We are going to need to have a broad-based crusade that brings together you in the commercial sector, but those in industry, those in primary production, those in the various service sectors. For example, if Zimbabwe wants to do well as far as attraction of tourists to the country is concerned, we need to look at that sector and say, from top to bottom, what are the skills that are needed? What are the orientations that are in place? How have exemplary tourism destinations conducted themselves and set themselves as such exemplars, as places where people yearn to visit and want to visit over and over again. And then let's see how we can develop the skills in that sector. We are a country that is well endowed with natural resources, but to be honest with you, I don't think we are getting enough value from those natural resources. We have seen the development of the lithium sector. We, as a nation, we need to collectively think in terms of how do we develop skills in that sector so that we can obtain maximum value from the sector. And in that process, we can aid the economic development of this country. And that's relevant to a lot of other value chains in our economy. What exactly do we intend to do? We intend, first of all, to update a skills audit that was done in 2018, which identified some of the gaps that we have. And most of the gaps, and this was done at a higher level. It was looking at skills that emanate from our universities and colleges. And it was established that most of the shortages are in the area related to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Um, we realized that we had an oversupply in areas such as, business management generally. Um, so we are taking that the results of that audit and updating it. But we also realized that it had a number of short comings. It concentrated at the higher level, but did not look at skills that should be generated at the lower level. For example, skills emanating from our technical and vocational colleges that are dotted across the country in the various districts and designed mainly to serve the skills needs of the specific communities in which they exist. We have we are not just looking at what skills are needed, but we are also looking at those institutions and saying, are they placed in a position where they could, effectively deliver on the skills? When we say, for example, skills as simple as plumbing, uh, does the uh, technical and vocational institution in Otito, which is supposed to train those skills, develop those skills, does it have the adequate human capital? Does it have the adequate infrastructure in terms of workshops and the like to ensure that it delivers on those skills? We should do that at every level. Our polytechnics, for example, do they have the capacity to deliver on the skills that we want them to develop? What are the infrastructure and human capital gaps in those institutions? And how can we plug those gaps so that these institutions can be effective in the delivery of the skills? We should go further to our universities. Our universities should be viewed as, the centers for high-level research and development and high-level innovation that can reach world-class status. And the question that we'll be asking is, if we go into the University of Zimbabwe, does it have what it takes to produce the research and development and innovations that can propel this country to fast growth in high-tech areas, in the areas of the future that we're talking about, and then say what needs to be done. For example, as far as universities are concerned, well endowed laboratories at universities have been the engines of scientific and technical transformation in the world. These are the places where most of the Nobel, winning inventions are developed. The typical characteristics of such universities is that these labs are well provided for in terms of equipment, but they are also well provided for in terms of the human capital. You find, leading professors there, and they are well remunerated. The chairs that they occupy are well endowed with resources. Uh, the professorial chair itself is a subject of annual uh, resource mobilization to ensure that the professor and his or her disciples are well provided for with research funds. Hence, a professor attracts talent from all over the world to come and do research under their guidance. They bring in, I have worked in universities in the United States, and they are bringing in people from China, from uh, you know, the high flyers from Africa, everywhere in the world. They are scouting for talent and bringing them to study their doctorates. But when they get their doctorates, they retain their high flyers there, give them postdoctoral research funds so that they can continue with the research that they have started under the supervision of the professor. If Zimbabwe is going to compete in the world in terms of churning out the innovations that will transform our economy, we need our institutions of higher learning to be well endowed with human capital and with equipment to ensure that we undertake fundamental research, we undertake world-class innovations that will transform this nation. So we'll be looking at that. I want to take you back where I referred to the various sectors. We foresee a situation where we'll work with each and every one of the national economic councils, NECs, to identify the specific needs, skills needs in that sector from top to bottom to ensure that that sector operates at the highest level of excellency. We anticipate that our initial assessment should be done by the third quarter of this year, and will produce a report that identifies the areas that we need to emphasize in terms of skills development. We will also identify the investments that are needed in our various institutions in order to make them fit to deliver on the skills that we need as a nation. We will also outline the cross-cutting skills, not just skills, but also orientations that are needed for Zimbabwe to compete favorably on the international scene. Ultimately, what we want Zimbabwe to be is a nation that is very confident that it can lift itself up by its own bootstraps. We want this nation to be cocky and say that we are not going to be laggards, but we are going to be leading in the transformation, social as well as economic transformation, positive social and economic transformation that will bring inclusive economic prosperity to Zimbabwe. so that we can address issues of poverty. Imi hamuzioni here kuti zvinonyadzisa kuti tirambe tiine cholera, a disease that we can address by just making sure that our wash systems are properly developed. And we need to develop national orientation that will say no more poverty, no more cholera, no more poor delivery of education from primary education all the way to tertiary education. Orientations that say we will have a robust health service system. Orientation that will say we will deal with issues of infrastructure deficiencies through the capabilities that we have developed ourselves as Zimbabweans, be it in road construction, be it in issues related to ICT infrastructure, issues of energy, not just energy in general, but also green energy, that we will take the front seat as far as those transformations are concerned. So I will not belabor you with this, let me give you that general discussion and then ask you to see if you have any questions which I can respond to. Are you there, Lucy?
Yes, I am, Professor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think
I hope I was audible through and through. Let me address the knock that is on my door, so I will mute a little bit.
All right, thank you. We'll give you a few minutes, and then when you're back, we can get into the Q&A.
I am back, Lucy.
Thank you very much, Professor Mavhima. I think you really explained it quite well. On my part, I'm quite clear now on what the ministry is there to do, what its plan of action is. I'm quite enlightened in what has been done so far and where we hope to go as a nation. I think as a nation, we call ourselves one of the most educated or the most literate nations in the world, but we are now moving towards being one of the most skilled nations. This is where we hope to go. So let me open it up to the floor and have questions coming in. Those that would like to speak, maybe we can have by them show by raising their hands, and then you can make your questions known to the professor so that we can get the discussion going. I see Mr. Tambudzai there. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for such a wonderful presentation. Dr. Tambudzai, coming from the higher education sector. My question, Professor, is that the issues that you highlighted in terms of state-of-art labs and the human capital that accompanies the equipment that we would have in such labs is very important. I'm particularly worried about the human capital side of it. The skills flight. the brain drain, the rate at which we are losing professors, doctors, and the young people that have the potential to take over when we retire. It's so alarming that by the time, Prof, you complete the assessment exercise in the third quarter, some of your results may actually be overtaken by what would have happened in the 6 months or so that the study would be taking place. Are there measures to try and stop the skills flight, at least to preserve and keep the little that we have? Like you said, big countries like the United States are busy tapping from the resources that should have actually helped us as developing countries. Is your ministry putting measures in place, maybe together with other ministries, to try and stop the skills flight? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tambudzai. I see another hand there. It says Marian Tukuta. If we can have another one, let's have 3 questions, and then we ask Honorable Professor Mavima to answer 3 questions at a time. So, Marian Tukuta, please go ahead, and then if we have one other hand, so we can have a panel of questions.
Thank you very much. I'm Professor Marian Tukuta from Higher Education as well. Mine is just yes, it's a comment. I'm happy that our Honorable Minister has seen the importance of having the academia working hand in hand with the industry, so that academia can inform the industry. I'm also happy to hear these issues which were raised about intellectual property in terms of the researches being done by the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, so that we come up maybe with patents, industrial designs, and many more, so that these product prototypes can further be developed into usable products. And I'm also happy to note that Zimbabwe, even Africa as a whole, we were blessed with a lot of natural resources, but